In last week's episode, we talked about a variety of different ways there are for hosting SQL databases on Azure. But one of those we might not have dug into very deeply before, SQL on a VM. Let's mash on that.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Asp.Net Monsters. I'm James, along here with Dave and Simon, and it's kind of like the relative that you're not terribly fond of, but possibly a good strategy in lift and shift scenarios. We're going to talk a little bit today about the hammer for every nail kind of approach. With a virtual machine running SQL Server. Simon, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you missed last week's episode, we gave you kind of the why you might want to do this, and this is going to be the how you might want to do this. So you can, of course, go ahead and install SQL Server on your own virtual machine on Azure, and you can take your own license and configure it in any way that you want. But because this is a supported scenario, Microsoft have seen fit to make this a little bit easier for you. So what I have here is a resource group with a couple of things in it. We've got a web server, which I'm not going to worry about for right now, but we also have SQL Server. So on this particular project, our issue is that we need to use SQL on a virtual machine because we have some old stored procedures in there that are actually relying on like being able to write to specific locations on disk and to execute procedures or execute code outside of SQL Server, and that's just not available on any other tier other than installing everything to VMs. So here we have a standard virtual machine.
Are you meaning to share?
Oh, I am totally meaning to share. Let me make that
That's
happen.
why we're here for you, Simon.
Yeah. Right. So I have this resource group, as I said. So I've got a bunch of stuff in here, but these are the two that we're really interested in right now. So the first one is just a standard virtual machine here. So in this case, I provisioned just like a SQL Server virtual machine. It is an AMD core machine for fun, because it's a little bit faster, and also because I own 4 shares in AMD, so I feel like any time that I can use an AMD processor, I'm going to do it because it's going to add pennies to my ability to retire.
That's a great reason.
It is a great reason. So I built this up using Terraform. So this is just a standard like virtual machine, and I set the image on the virtual machine to be the Microsoft SQL Server image, and the offering is just like SQL 2019 on this one, and then it's built on top of like Windows Server 2019 data center. But then in addition to this, I added in an extra piece, and that is this little bit here for SQL Virtual Machine. So this is just an added piece that you can configure inside of the portal, or there is a Terraform resource for it too. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And what this does is it adds some management capabilities to SQL Server. So a lot of the things that, like I was complaining about, you'd have to do yourself, actually are handled for you using this extension that plugs into your existing virtual machine. So if you have a license for SQL Server, you can set it up in the license type here. So in this case, we don't have a license available for us, so we are paying as we go for the license on this one. We can attach storage.
But if you had like purchased one through like a corporate plan or whatever, you could just port that over here and then...
Yeah, that's right. So you can do a hybrid licensing model. So if you have an existing SQL Server on-premise and you licensed it for 5 years, and that was only a year ago, you can port that license over here. But this also does things like automated patching. So this will apply SQL Server and also Windows patches to your machine for you, according to some schedule. So I have this one set up to do like Sunday mornings or something. So that is a really nice feature, because that's one of the bits that it is a pain to do, to like remember to go and update things, SQL Server and Windows and all of that. And we also have the ability to put automatic backups in place on this one. So backing up is another thing that is really easy in like the managed SQL instances. So this brings that same sort of functionality here. So I can set up a schedule in here to go and do backups at middle of the night and drop those backups onto blob storage somewhere. So if something does happen to my database, I always have those backups available to me. And also it surfaces some information here about the virtual machine. So you can see like the various different drives that I have attached here and how much storage there is available for them. So when I set this up, I set up, I think the F drive is my data drive and the G drive is my log drive. So because this is a very new server, there's just like, I don't even know if there's any value in there. It's very small anyway. 100 megabytes of data has been used on that disk. So this is really nice in that it gives me an ability to come here and see if I'm approaching storage limits without having to actually log into the machine and double check on them. Yeah, so this is just a quicker and easier way to kind of set up the virtual machines for SQL Server. I didn't do anything really other than figure out the Terraform and tell it what drives to mount to. So behind the scenes, it's gone and applied some extensions here to the virtual machine. So in here, it's added this like SQL ASS, or maybe it's an IASS extension. So this is what allows this other component to actually talk to the machine and figure out the SQL properties on it. So
does it also set up like network groups or policies, whatever it is, to like expose the ports for SQL traffic and everything? That's all done automatically?
I don't think that stuff is done automatically. So I have a network security group assigned to this virtual machine, which is just kind of like a standard virtual machine and a standard network security group for it. So that's basically how my networking works. So if I need to open up a port, I just do it in the NSG. So I don't think you do it necessarily for the other thing. It might open ports in the Windows firewall if that's something that's necessary.
Right.
But for the actual like firewall rules around this virtual machine, those are all hidden away in the network security group.
Cool.
So does this isn't then like supporting that P2V scenario and then doing that hard lift and shift with your own disk? This is using the templated VM scenario that Azure offers with the SQL baked in. So the path would be you're going to back up your database and then restore it out to a new database out here.
Yeah, that would be one of the options. One of the other things that I've done in the past.
Because you'd want to have this tooling that they provide baked in.
Yeah,
right?
the tooling is really nice to have. So you can apply that, I think, to probably any server that has SQL on it already. So if you wanted to lift and shift like that, you could do it. I usually take this as an opportunity to like just back up the database and restore it, or in scenarios where we can't have the downtime for like a backup and a restore, or it's super big, then we can set up a log shipping or replication in one of the many forms and get the data up to Azure in that way. And what we do is we'll run like the Azure server as a secondary and then the on-premise server as a primary, and then once everything has copied over, we'll just fail over the servers and tear down the on-premise server, updating connection strings as needed.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay, so you said there's a TerraScript form or Terraform script available.
Yeah, so I'll put a link in there. So there's Terraform resources for setting this up, and it's all fairly simple out of the box. And I think I followed somebody's blog post, so I will put that up too. And it should be pretty easy for people to do if they need to. And of course, if it's available in Terraform, it's going to be available in ARM and in Bicep as well, and Plumi if that happens to be your thing. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on today's episode of the Asp.Net Monsters. Remember to like, comment, and share, and we'll see everybody next week.
Cheers.
Okay.